my recovery. I'm a better sister. I'm a better friend. I'm definitely a better co-worker. I'm a dependable employee, and that means I show up on time and I complete the tasks that are given to me. Grandmother to my 3 beautiful grandchildren, and my oldest granddaughter, Isabella, tells me that I'm her BFF. That means the world to me because I haven't always been the best mother to my kids. And I speak out about my recovery because I want to be an example to others that recovery is real. I like to do the housekeeping. I want to let you guys know that this webinar is worth 1.5 CEUs. In the next couple of days after the webinar, all participants will receive a follow-up email, and this just confirms your attendance to the webinar. Please keep this email for your personal records, as we do not send out certificates for webinars. Also, everyone will be muted during the webinar, and this is just to keep order. We do want to during the webinar. So to engage with us, please raise your hand and I will recognize you and unmute you to speak. Or type your question in the question box and I'll read it. But remember, we do welcome your questions and your comments, and we definitely want to hear from you. This presentation will focus on the RCO development process used by the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. We will discuss the benefits of RCOs, the services provided by RCOs, and the future of RCO development across the state of Georgia. It's by Brian Kite, Emily Riblet, Christian Frazier, and Bill Whitney. And I thank everybody for being here in advance. To say your elevator speech, introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Emily Riblet, and I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means for me is on March 5th of this year, I will have 5 years free from using any mind or mood-altering substances to change the way I feel, including cigarettes. And today I am I'm a very grateful grandmother. For the first time, I was able to be there when my grandson was born. I found out that my daughter was engaged to be married on Valentine's Day of this year, and I was able to be a part of that. Today, I'm a grateful mom to both of my grown children. I'm a daughter to my mom, and I am a sibling, sister. And I'm a member of a church that I love very much. I'm very involved with my church. I'm also involved in 12-step community. I give back to my community. I'll be doing a 5K for the Atlanta Union Mission on Saturday, which is where I graduated from. So the reason why I say all that is that I am a grateful member of society today, and I'm a grateful member of the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, and I am the B Corps project director for the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. Today, I live my recovery out loud because I want others to have the same opportunities that I have had to get and stay well. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. My name is Brian Kite. I am the RCO Development Project Coordinator at the Georgia council on Substance Abuse. I'm also a person in long-term recovery, and for me, it's been over 5 years since I found it necessary to using alcohol or drugs. And my recovery today is much more than just abstinence from drugs and alcohol. It allows me to be present in my family's life, where I'm a better son and brother and uncle. And I'm a father to my 6-year-old boy, Henry. And we get to spend amazing time together, and I'm able to show up and be present in his life. I'm also a member of North Atlanta Church of Christ, and the same church that Emily attends, and a part of their recovery ministry there. Also give back in my community, and I'm grateful to be a full-time employee at the Georgia Council, where I get to work with different communities and help them come together to support and lift up the voice of recovery and find opportunities that they can serve their peers, that they can find and maintain long-term recovery. And so today what we're going to talk about is how the Georgia Council has been able to do that. So we'll give you an overview, a little bit of history, and then that plays right into the RCO development. And it all goes back to engaging communities in a participatory process.
So the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse's mission statement is to increase the impact of recovery in Georgia's communities through education, advocacy, training, and peer support services.
And we'll tell you all about how we make that happen.
Yep.
So Georgia Council on Substance Abuse has been around for 20 years now, and we primarily receive funding from GBHDD and SAMHSA to provide the work that we do to our communities. And we partner with the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network on many of our projects because we all know that substance use and mental health issues go hand in hand, and Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network really paved the way as far as peer support goes and creating the certified peer specialist training. And so we follow along with them. And we are also a member of the Association of Recovery Community Organizations on a national level, and we're certified through CAPRIS. So there's definitely accreditation, and we have high standards for the work that we do.
So what is an RCO? An RCO, or a Recovery Community Organization, is an independent nonprofit organization that is led and governed by representatives of local communities in recovery. But peers are the ones who lead and govern RCOs. And we focus on advocacy, education and training, and peer-based recovery support services.
So here at the Georgia Council, we always like to say that people support what they help create. And Dale Carnegie said this: people support a world they help create. And so we're trying to create a world that embraces recovery, lifts up the voice of recovery. And so we know that we have many recovery champions on the call today. And so we want to ask some of you who you are. And I think Loree has a poll question for you, I believe. And so she could probably ask that at this time.
Okay.
And
you want me to go with the poll question?
sure.
Great. All right.
And as people are answering that, I'll just give a little bit of an explanation about how some of this has started to happen back in when Neil Campbell, our executive director, came on board back and then in 2011, she really made some strong initiative. There was the recovery initiative that was happening, and so her and some others went around the state and provided listening sessions all over this state to define, to get Georgia's definition of recovery. And they also, not too long after that, began the work with developing CARES and all the work that went behind that. And so really it was a push to speak out to legislators too at this time, and trying to get some opportunities for us to grow as far as our peer voice in recovery. And so that played in next steps with our advocacy work. And so before we do that, Loree, we got some people answering the poll?
We do. And I'll let you know. So we have 18% of the people in the webinar are CARES. 20%, well, they are CARES 1 to 10. And we have 20% that are CARES cohort 11 through 20, CARES 21 to 30, 20%, CARES 31 and above, 30% of the webinar. And we have 13% of people that are not a CARES, but they love at least one CARES.
Oh,
All right, that's a nice mix of
awesome.
people.
That's awesome, Loree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, part of the advocacy work that that we do here at the Georgia Council started with an initiative called Addiction Recovery Awareness Day, and we had the most recent ARAD, and where it was actually, that's Governor Brian Kemp who announced that January 28th going forward will be national, Georgia's ARAD. So the Addiction Recovery Awareness Day in Georgia will be January 28th going forward. And so we're very proud and honored to be part of that. And that's a picture of Neil and Jeff Breedlove, our Director of Communications with the Governor this year.
It's amazing to see how that's grown from just a small contingent of 50 people to well over 1,000 people now that we have filled up the Georgia Freight Depot and are making a presence, and our legislators are showing up for us today, which is awesome. And so we do advocacy and education. And some of the things that we do, just a few for education, we're providing science of addiction recovery or SOAR training, recovery oriented systems of care or ROSC workshops. We also do recovery advocacy training and recovery messaging. And you can see this is Emily, myself, and our manager, Gene Conroy, at the Peer Workforce Conference in Athens, Georgia, back in August. And this is a group that we were doing a recovery messaging training for, and they were in the midst of a dyad, so getting to know each other. And that's everything that we do is a part of engaging in that participatory process. So even in our trainings, our education, our advocacy work, it's about hearing from the peer, hearing that voice and allowing them to share their thoughts.
So we also have our CARE certification training, which most of the folks on this call are very familiar with. And we offer a 40-hour workshop to become certified addiction recovery empowerment specialist. And we believe that as a CARES, our lived experience is what makes us qualified to help other people who may be in or seeking recovery from substance use disorder. And if anyone wants more information about the CARES Academy, how to apply, and the things that are required to become a CARES, please reach out and we'll get you in contact and we'll have that conversation. So this is part of the CARES Academy. This is Jay. Jay Hughes is our director of training, and he's such a powerful presenter. So I'm not sure which CARES Academy. Oh, this was CARES 38. This is the most recent CARES Academy, and that's Unique Dixon. So they were presenting, and this is, this is the most recent cohort of the CARES.
Yep. So I'm not sure if any of those CARES are on this call or not. Probably not.
Probably
but
not.
There might be some of you that were in this picture. So, not only do we have our trainings, but I'm sure most of you are well aware of our CARES Connects. And so this was a CARES Connect at the church that Emily and I both attend, North Atlanta Church of Christ. And so staying engaged with one another is important and part of this participatory process as well. So we do a few peer-based recovery support services. In Northeast Georgia Medical Center is where two of them are, and Emily will talk a little bit about one of those.
So the first in October of 2017, we started offering peer support in the emergency department of the Northeast Georgia Medical Center, and it's called Northeast Georgia Community Connections is the name of that program. Larissa Guerrero, excuse me, she's married. She changed her name, and she's our director of peer services, and she is the lead on that program. We also have another program in Northeast Georgia, Community Connections as well. So just these are some of the statistics of people that they have seen in the emergency department. They had 1987 individuals came through with issues with alcohol, and then as you can see, they vary after that. The largest percentage of people that are come in contact with a peer are there for alcohol related issues. And so these were the number of encounters that they have calculated since October of 2017 when they started offering peer support. They've had 4,062 hospital encounters and 4,725 successful follow-ups with those peers.
So a part of the follow-up, you may ask, what does that look like? Well, ideally, it's going to be one-on-one follow-ups, and sometimes they'll meet their peers at other meetings or in a group setting as well. But if they can't do that, there's alternatives that they can reach out via phone, text, or social media as well. So another program is the NICU department, and that's also through the same hospital system. But they saw the work that the ED was doing, and so they wanted to be a part of that as well. And so, you know, first off is kind of, we'll just walk through like a little timeline of how it kind of works, is connecting with the mother, whether she's, however that is. Sometimes it might be when she comes in to deliver, or it might be coming, you know, get a referral from the OBGYN, or however that is that they come in contact with the mother, but they'll start that relationship and then stay in contact with while the child is in the NICU, and so they can provide that peer support while the baby is you know, healing from the neonatal abstinence syndrome, and be able to provide the mother best peer support that they can. And then this plays into the advocacy work, and so whether that's at the hospital speaking for the peer, or if that's in a family treatment court, or for the towards the DFACS cases, you know, we're there to advocate for our peers so that they can have the support they need, and so that ideally that they're going to be reunited with their child and reunified with their families. And so that's the hope that is happening through the NICU services. And a big piece of information that is just huge is that the hospital has done some other efforts too, but in line with the NICU department, they've been able to reduce the bed stay, the average bed stay, from over 30 days to under 10, which saves on average a cost of $3,000 per day. So you're looking at upwards on a low end of $60,000 in savings per child. So they have met just through last year 161 moms and had 1,081 successful follow-ups with those individuals.
So we also have the CARES Warm Line as one of our peer recovery support services here at the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. The CARES Warm Line is an available telephone support system, and it is available anytime between 8:30 in the morning and 11 p.m. at night. You can call the Warm Line or text. We have certified peer coaches available to actively listen and to engage in conversations with people who are in and seeking recovery from substance use disorder, or allies. Could be people looking for resources, family members. It's open, and all are welcome to call or text the CARES Warm Line. And if you are interested in receiving a call back from the CARES Warm Line, they will call you, return your call, check in with you, and follow up. So they have, since November of 2017, they have had 10,770 calls on the Warm Line and 919 text messages.
So going into RCOs, Georgia Council is a statewide RCO, and we provide support for all of the other RCOs across the state. And you see there's quite a few here, and we will be hearing from just a couple of them here shortly. And more importantly, we want to show you that, you know, we are spread across the state, this network of support, and we are working to engage more communities to grow the network as we speak. So we work with communities across the state, and each RCO is unique. So they provide services that are going to benefit their community. There may be something lacking in one community that's not in another, and so the RCO will try to bridge the gaps in resources and fill the gaps where they can.
So these are some of the services. This is not limited, but this is an example of some of the services that a recovery community organization can provide. Up on the top left corner, we have CA, which is Cocaine Anonymous. And then the next picture beside that is Teresa Stewart, who is the executive director of iHope, which is a RCO in Warner Robins, Georgia. Teresa was amazing in starting a transportation service for peers, and they are able to connect with a peer recovery coach while they're being transported to different appointments and places that they need to get to. Because in rural middle Georgia, transportation was a serious issue, and it was a barrier preventing people from getting and staying well. And so Teresa wanted to really provide that service. And then what she has done is she's mentored other organizations and other communities so that they can get started with a peer transportation service. So Y12SR is another program which is amazing. Y12SR is Yoga 12-Step Recovery, and it can be offered in recovery community organizations. And Coweta Force actually offers Y12SR in the jails. So it's not just limited to one specific place. You can take it on the road. We also have down here in the bottom left-hand corner, that's Shane Sims, who is speaking to a peer who had to serve some time in Athens Clarke County Jail, which I'm very familiar with that facility. But Shane was supporting this peer who was in recovery but needed to take care of some outstanding situations, and he was there to be able to support that peer. So also Al-Anon is another program for families who are supporting loved ones. And we also have at the bottom right-hand corner, that's Rise Theater. Rise is located in the Metropolitan warehouse space in downtown Atlanta, and Alexia Jones is creating a paradigm shift through offering recovery through different art mediums, whether that's dancing, music, drumming, pottery. I mean, they do it all. They creative writing, you name it. If it's artistic, they offer yoga as well. So if you're in that particular area and you want to go check out Rise Theater, they also take their RCO on the road as well and offer support to different communities. They're going to be doing something in April up at Living Proof Recovery in Rome, Georgia. So,
Hey, let me
So
ask you a question.
Yes.
Before we go on, we have a question from Carrie Hawkins. Are there any RCOs northwest of Rome?
That's a great question, Carrie, and I think he's setting me up for the. I know that we are hoping that we can get started working in Dalton and North Georgia as well. We've had some interest from Carrie and some other folks on the other side and of Northeast Georgia as well in Stevens County, and so we try to look, the RCO team look geographically and strategically of where we're lacking a presence, where a presence is lacking, not necessarily our presence, but in the community, to support individuals in recovery and provide something that's unique. And so, not yet, but there will be. Not yet. But another question that I want to ask, and so if there's any other questions, please feel free to provide that info to Larry, send it in the chat box, ask a question, raise your hand, and we'll be able to pause as we're going through these and provide some information for you. And
as a matter of fact, we do have one hand raised right now. Another.
Okay.
Okay, Jennifer Barnett, you are unmuted. Please.
I don't have a question.
Okay, well, I'm gonna take your hand down. Okay, thank you, guys.
All right. But Larry, at this time, I know we shared a list of the RCOs around the state, and we want to hear who has been to an RCO that's on this call.
Yep.
If you want to send out, I think that you've got a question prepared for the folks, and they can kind of answer that.
Okay.
So we'll send that question out, and then as we're waiting, we'll get the feedback after we allow 2 other RCOs to share about their organizations. And again, if you have questions for either of these RCOs, to provide that in the chat box, ask in the question area as well, and then we'll get to those when we can. So
All right,
at this,
guys, we have about 70% who have voted. We're trying to get 100% of people to vote. Have you ever been to a RCO, Recovery Community Organization? Vote now. I'm going to close it in about 5 seconds. All right, guys. And the results are actually 78% of the participants in this webinar have been to a RCO,
that is awesome.
and 22% have not.
Okay.
All
And
right,
that may be because of what Carrie had asked.
Yeah.
There might not be an RCO present there yet, and so you may be the recovery champion that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. So, but before we do that, I'm going to allow Christian Frazier to tell you a little bit more about Focus on Recovery Augusta.
Woohoo. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you, Emily, for having us. So my name is Christian Frazier. I am the executive director of for Augusta, Focus on Recovery Augusta. We have been open since August of last year. The idea was born when I went through the CARES Academy, CARES 25. The seed was planted that day when that was the first time that I'd ever been introduced to the concept of a community organization, and it was truly a game changer in a variety of ways. So I don't have a common, or I guess I would say traditional recovery story. I am a person living in long-term recovery from a substance use disorder. And what that means is that I haven't felt the need to self-medicate to deal with my mental health or any of my shortcomings since 2014. I speak out about my recovery, and I run organizations like the one that we're discussing, or the variety of the ones that we're discussing today, because I believe that everybody deserves a chance. And I also believe, like so many others, that there is not a one-size-fits-all solution to this very complex sociological problem that we've been experiencing in this country for decades now. And that's where I was first introduced to the idea of multiple pathways, their value, and what it could mean to a person who felt like they didn't belong where they were told that they, had to go to get what they needed. That's what I meant when I said that I didn't have a traditional story. Like I went to the 12-step rooms, and I always felt like I was in the wrong place. I felt like I was hearing the wrong things, and it was being spoken in the wrong way. I was receiving it incorrectly. I was just a tourist in a place that I didn't belong. And when I found out that there were other options and that there were other people that believed like me, like I latched on to the concept and tried to figure out what it is that I needed to do to execute it where I lived, because nothing like that existed. And I'll kind of go into what we developed. I didn't do it alone. I know that I'm the one that's on this call talking to you all, and thank you for being here today. I didn't do this alone. I surrounded myself intentionally with the most talented and thoughtful and intentional and measured people that I could find, so that we would have the creativity and so that I could make sure that the vision for the peers in the city of Augusta, Georgia was always diversified and always capable of evolving. So our mission, as you see it on the screen, is designed to empower individuals and families, especially families, because we want to make sure that everything we do is holistic in nature, in or seeking recovery from substance use disorders and other mental health challenges to lead secure and healthy lives. The City of Augusta and Focus on Recovery Augusta strives to ensure that individuals and families in or seeking recovery, in or long-term recovery, through a strength-based pathway for a healthier person, family, and community overall. You can go to the next slide, Lori. So some of our strengths that we have identified in the over a half year that we've been open now, and it took us 2 years, maybe 2.5, 3 years of planning and operating without walls before we got to the point that we are now. So if you're a person who's been considering this idea, there are going to be a lot of times when you feel like abandoning it and walking away and going, you know what, maybe this just isn't going to happen. And I would just encourage you, I would suggest to you to stay the course, and make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who have the same vision so you won't all lose it on the same day, because it's a hard process, but it's worth it, just like us. So some of our strengths, focus on recovery Augusta, or for Augusta, as I'll refer to it as we go forward. And if any of y'all ever want to follow us on Facebook, that's the hashtag for Augusta. We have successfully launched multiple pathways of recovery that did not previously exist in this city. And when we get to a later slide, I'll tell you which ones those are. We've developed strong relationships with partner agencies all over the city in an effort to increase the best possible outcome for our attendees. We have a lot of good organizations here, just like I'm sure most of your cities do, and you'll probably identify with the concept that those organizations are all operating in silos. The left hand never knows what the right hand is doing in terms of the continuum of care. And what we have attempted to do over the last couple of years is build bridges between all of those organizations so that the people that are looking to get into recovery and trying to sustain long-term recovery have this seamless, path to walk between all of these different agencies so they can get the most value, the most recovery capital possible out of the city of Augusta. We do more than just create space for new pathways to operate. It's also about increasing education and understanding with our citizenry. So, we kind of borrow from that concept, preaching to the choir. It's really pointless to do so because, for obvious reasons, they get it. They're bought in. What we have to do is make sure, if we want to discontinue these really awful conversations that continue to be had about us, that we need to be the authors of changing the conversation. And you don't do that with people in recovery, like they're bought in. You go and do that with allies. You go and do that with the detractors. You go and you stand toe to toe with them and you have those hard, crucial conversations, not in an adversarial way, just one that says, hey, tell me why. The same way that we do with our peers, like just keep asking why. Those motivational interviewing techniques, you can turn those around in a lot of different ways to make sure that we're creating the best possible products here. We also value experiential offerings. I know Emily talked about some of those. We continue to look for, find, and implement ways for them to fit into our program schedule, exposing people in recovery to so much more than they previously thought was possible or available. For a lot of us, recovery looked like a circle of padded chairs, a few white folding tables, some baskets, some coffee machines, and we believe that that's all there was. Now we've come to find out through programs like Phoenix Multisport, for Augusta, Coweta Force, that there are things like hiking, CrossFit, yoga. There's things like gardening, planting seeds and having these therapeutic conversations with people where we go, okay, well, where's the flowers? Well, they haven't grown yet, Christian. It takes time. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you mean whatever you do today will not grow fruit until later on? So helping kind of reshape people's vision about what their recovery is and what it isn't. And also teaching them about what their addiction was and what it wasn't. And these conversations are more easily broached through these experiential offerings. You can go to the next slide, Lori. So this is a list of the groups and services that we have. Smart Recovery, I talked about yoga. Recovery Dharma has been a game changer here in the city of Augusta. We identified that a lot of our individuals in recovery were struggling with concepts of religion and spirituality. And so we borrowed, well, not borrowed, but, we reached out to the Recovery Dharma folks. And for those of you who don't know, maybe you've heard of Refuge Recovery. That particular organization split over the last 2 years. Refuge Recovery still exists. There was another group that broke off and rebranded themselves Recovery Dharma, and that's what we support here. It's a Buddhist-based philosophy that is not a competitor in any way, shape, or form with modern day Christianity. It just works off of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path of the Buddhist philosophy. And what we've identified through facilitating that group now for almost 7-8 months is that it's helping heal trauma. Because the Four Noble Truths deal with the path of suffering. And a lot of people who have been hiding things from their fourth steps and their more traditional recovery programs are now finding the space necessary to talk about those things, and their recovery is completely taking on a new shape. Like I said, CrossFit, we're doing eating disorder support, Cocaine Anonymous. We do have a Christian-based pathway, medication-assisted recovery, codependency, grief, heroin, crystal meth, all recovery, naloxone training, one-on-one coaching, and we recently just added a women's big book study. Almost every single thing on this page did not exist in Augusta prior to 2019. So we really have created space where people can get in where they fit in now. And more importantly, we're teaching people how to create a varietal program that almost completely eliminates any kind of monotony or redundancy, which we know used to be a major setback or an obstacle for folks in achieving those 2 to 3 year timeframes and those 3 to 5 year timeframes, where we know that the percentage chances of never relapsing again exponentially increase. So this has just been remarkable. You can go to the next slide, Lori. So a couple of our opportunities. We have a real problem with growth right now. The first month that we were open, August, we had 37 people show up to the center, all unduplicated because it was the first month. Last month, we had 605 people come through the center. I think 118 of them were unduplicated, and those trends are continuing. Like, we've been inching up by about 15 to 20% every month in both of those categories, and very soon we will not have room for some of our groups, or they will have to split, or we're going to have to get creative with the schedule and have them meet multiple nights a week just so they'll have room for all of their particular group attendees. Our crystal meth group, our Cocaine Anonymous, our Heroin Anonymous are seeing an average of about 40 people in a room that should hold like 27, 28 people. They're sitting in the hallways. They want to be together that badly, and they wanted that group to exist even more badly. So we're starting, we're almost to year 1 of our lease here, and we're starting to look for bigger places, which is a great problem to have. We continue to actively engage and kind of slow walk the relationship with our more traditional recovery community. They're still hesitant about the concepts that we're using with the multiple pathways and changing language and identifying in a much different fashion than some of them are comfortable with. And that's okay. We are going to continue to slow walk that relationship and nurture it and back off when we need to, and engage when it's necessary. We're very careful and measured. I always like to use that word measured with our attendees, because I think the more measured we can be, the more measured results we'll get. Our inability to serve individuals under the age of 18 has been a big issue this past year. We have become kind of like a light in the dark here in Augusta. The RCO has. We're seeing a lot of families reach out. Please help my son. Please help my daughter. Inevitably the question is, how old are they? 16, 15, 14, addicted to opiates. And the list goes on and on and on. You've seen the numbers in the slides from earlier with Emily, and we can't help them. Just contractually, it's just something that we can't do based on the way everything is set up. But hopefully down the road, we'll be able to do more. We're doing what we can outside the walls of the RCO to provide support, and because we've developed those relationships among the city, we're able to kind of send them where they might best fit. But that's an opportunity of ours for change coming down the line. You can go to the next slide, Lori. And so some of our aspirations as I kind of wrap up here, thanks for your patience, everybody. So for Augusta envisions recovery having a seat at every table in the city. We want to be in the courts, the emergency rooms, the schools, military installations, everywhere. if there is a conversation being had about resources being divvied up or policy being made, we want a person in recovery in that room, making sure that our community is thought of. For Augusta wants to build out an experiential offering that completely incorporates a holistic approach, we have access to trails, rivers, and areas to climb and camp. We want to be able to incorporate fitness and create opportunities for individuals to bond in these capacities. I don't know where you're all from. I know you're all fundamentally in the state of Georgia. We have great outdoor offerings here in our state. We have a beautiful state, although it's been raining for like 347 days in a row in Augusta. But you know, these types of things, you know, they just prove year over year, statistic over statistic, that you know, they create lifelong companionship and bonding experiences. And we just want to make sure that we're using every tool at our disposal to enrich the recovery capital of people in Augusta. We also envision an ability to do early intervention work with our youth, thereby reducing the crushing long-term effects that substance use disorder can produce on a human life. One of the things that I am capable of doing as a consultant and as a representative of the recovery community, but not so much for Augusta, I wrote a proposal and it was accepted by the Board of Education at one of our local counties. And I've started to teach in the local high schools. I've been teaching the science of addiction and recovery in the health classes. So they already have a chapter in their curriculum for substance use that addresses alcohol, marijuana, smoking, vaping. So I have just taken over that chapter, completely doing it for free as volunteer work. And we're having conversations with the kids that were not previously possible, since most of these health classes were taught by gym teachers. It's not to take anything away from them, you know, but we know because we have a close relationship with the alternative school by nature of the relationships we've been developing, that the kids just aren't getting what they need. And hopefully what grows out of that is getting peer recovery coaches in the high schools to support those kids early on, right there at the point of impact, similarly to, you know, Brian was talking about with the Northeast Hospital project, you know, meeting those kids right where they're at so that maybe we can stop the tide instead of putting a human life back together in adulthood. So that's just a couple of our aspirations. I think that was the last slide. So if anybody has any questions and they want to ask them here. Oh, nope, not the last slide. Thank you for that. So I talked about some of the numbers, you know, seeing us, how many individuals we saw in the first month and the last. This is a really great one, and it's a product of our relationship development. So all 4 Augusta meetings on the schedule are now qualified as signable events for individuals involved with the Drug and Accountability Court, the Day Reporting Center, and also the local DFACS office. We are now offered as a step-down option from 2 of the 4 local hospitals and 3 of the local treatment centers, meaning that once a person leaves inpatient, they'll be referred to an outpatient program. If they cannot, for whatever reason, afford or participate in that program, they will be referred to us. And all of our information is being sent out in discharge packets from 2 of the 4 local hospitals. Fort Augusta has become a recovery destination for individuals around our surrounding rural counties. You know, the Central Savannah River area, which we are a part of, is comprised of 14 counties. And really only fundamentally 2 of those counties are incorporated and have sizable populations. The rest of them are all rural, get very little to no support. Now our local hospital, Augusta University Health, in partnership with the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, have gotten $1 million grant to increase services. And we're hoping to be a huge proponent and supporter of that particular project. One of my recovery coaches here is from a very rural county. She also runs a women's sober living house, which takes in a lot of women from rural counties. So we're going to make sure that we do whatever we can to build these individuals up, get them involved in the recovery system of care so that they too can go back to where they came from if they so desire and continue to carry this this message and project forward. And I believe that's it.
Thanks, Christian.
Thanks, Kristen. That was
We do have one.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, we do have a couple of questions if it would be all right to go ahead with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so the first question is from Kimberly Mosley. She says she is curious about the funding for the RCOs as far as the startup cost, the location, and then how is the day-to-day operations of the center funded? Are there any state subsidies or grants, or are they all self-funded?
Brian, did you want me to talk about what I can?
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, I know that, so there are some organizations like the two that you'll hear from that do have contracts with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. But ideally, and to remain sustainable, that, you know, both of these organizations and all of the organizations are going to work on sustainability efforts outside of that. And so there's engaging in the participatory process with the communities is going to hopefully allow other opportunities for funds to come in. And so, you know, how you make that happen is unique to those communities as well. And I don't know if Christian, if you wanted to speak further on that.
I could, to the degree I can, I will. That's a good question.
Sure.
It was obviously one of the first questions I had, so it makes sense. So we received, like Brian mentioned, one of these SOAR grants, state opioid response money. It was from the federal level, taken down to the state level, and it's managed by the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. That is a reimbursable grant. So we get a certain amount allotted to us in October. Everything is budgeted, I mean, to the exact penny. And we spend that month over month. I think this will answer part of your question. So that goes for operations like salary, utilities. We also have money built in there for training costs, like when we have to travel for Cares Connect, or, you know, to the Macon Symposium, or if we're going to go, you know, like we're doing a cultural competency training right now, and that'll require us to try. There's money allotted for everything that we could possibly think of, you know, down to the printer paper. You know, and then, you know, we'll reapply for that year over year. But beyond that, and to Brian's point, you know, about sustainability, like that money's not going to last forever. So we were very intentional and very measured in the kind of board of directors that we built when we set up the RCO, you know, for their talents, but also for their reach, their networks, and their fundraising capabilities. You know, we're sourcing local grant money, we're sourcing other federal grant money from SAMHSA and so on, to make sure that, you know, once that DBHDD, you know, funding runs out or it's transferred to another organization that deserves it, that we are capable of continuing our progress forward. Does that answer your question? I hope it does. I don't know if you
Hopefully it does, and I think that you touched on a lot of good things there, and ultimately it goes, the only reason, not the only reason, but some of the reason that, you know, Christian was able to receive the grant that he did, the opportunity that he did with the DBHDD grant, is because of the efforts that he had already began in the community. And so he's started, like he said, with nothing, and it took some time. And honestly, that's probably going to be the case most across the board. And the community starts to see the impact, and then they start to support that. And then hopefully that's going to reflect to others as well as you continue to grow, and they'll be able to have more opportunities as that happens. So if there's any other questions, you can provide those. But at this point, we're going to allow Bill Whitney from Recovery Community Foundation of Forsyth to talk about the connection. Thank you again, Christian. Bill, you ready?
Hi. Sure.
All right.
So first, let me acknowledge Christian on an incredibly thorough, informative, and helpful presentation, and for your commitment to your community. I'm Bill Whitney, and I'm a man in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is that it has been almost 12 years since I found it necessary to take a drink or a drug to cope with my life. And what that allows me today is the opportunity to be a fierce advocate for recovery in my community in my home, in my spiritual family, and fortunately, because my employer is a supporter of recovery, I get to do that without any kind of fear or consequence that somebody's going to, not approve. Recovery is healing, and we live by the vision that healing is inevitable and that it is not just for people in recovery, but for the community at large. It is the mission of the Recovery Community Foundation, which is our RCO, to empower recovery in our county. The founder of RCFF is my wife, Catherine Rossborough, and this was an organic and totally grassroots process from its very inception. She started in 2016, literally as an RCO without walls, running around town, and these were a collection of people in recovery who believed passionately in it and told their stories to everybody that they could, and made incredibly important connections in that process, so that when the ARSC was founded through a SOAR grant in September of 2018, we already enjoyed some very, very important connections and stakeholders to the cause of our mission. So going to the next slide, the strengths of the RCO, of the ARSC, which is the connection, empowerment, and really this is consistent with the mission of the connection. We live to empower recovery, and what that starts with for us is meeting them where they are, anybody in recovery, and we use our stories to relate to the experience of particularly new people when they come in for the first time, regardless of how they've arrived here, that they feel like they have found a home, that they feel like they've found a place that is a place where they feel safe and they feel space and they feel time outside of what might otherwise be difficult circumstances in their lives to find their pathway into recovery. We are very, very careful about not directing, but rather listening and meeting and offering opportunities, but making sure that the individuals have choices that they can make and opportunities to try different things until they can, through the course of time and opportunity, be the architects of their own recovery. We live sort of by the phrase, we don't necessarily care what path you're on as long as you're going in the direction. And really, we, through our experiences, know that the most successful recovery, long-term recovery paths are those that, as Carnegie points out, if we get to build it, then we're more likely to own it. And I know, speaking from personal experience, that my recovery path has evolved and been free to do that. And because I've been connected to a community for all these years, I've had places to go and ask and seek and find and try and keep going. You know, Johan Hari said it best as far as the connection is concerned, and this is where our name comes from. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connection. And the difference between myself and my brother is that I found a community and found a connection of people that held me up, and he didn't have that connection and chose to end his life because he couldn't find his way out of the isolation of his addiction. I don't ever want that to happen to anybody ever again. So empowerment is our key and most important focal strength. We have a very strong commitment to a volunteer focus. They are here every single day. They live to serve, and it is that heartbeat that keeps us going, frankly, because a couple of people trying to manage an RCO or are kidding themselves if they think they're going to be able to do it by themselves. And because they are empowered to take ownership of the enterprise, of the community, of the ARSC, we are able to sustain operations and much, much more, which we'll get into. One of the other strengths that we focus on is our peer advisory board. They are the voice of the peer community. They are the ones empowered to identify opportunities, not just to serve the peer community, but to serve the community at large. They recommend services and events based on the needs of the community, and they have a terribly important role in integrating our community to the community at large, and we'll get more into that too. Our stakeholder buy-in is remarkable, and I credit the RCO Without Walls phase of this enterprise with that. We have remarkable buy-in from local government, both at the city and the county level. They have invested in the RCO, and we live to show some meaningful return through volunteer opportunities and through all sorts of collaborative things, which we'll get into. Collaborations and partnerships are absolutely essential to the long-term sustainability of the Recovery Community Foundation of Forsyth. We are intentional and very, very proactive and enjoy terrific partnerships with the faith community, with social services and other nonprofits. We're very active in our Chamber of Commerce. We're engaged with private business groups, the hospital, and we have a stronger than oak relationship with the legal and particularly the judicial communities. Next slide, please. Hello? Next slide, please. There we go. Thank you. Opportunities, or what we like to refer to as areas for further development. A lot of what our collaborations have pointed out to us are the need to develop workforce people to, there are jobs to be filled in our county, and we are very closely allied with a lot of these businesses so that we're not able just to find jobs for the businesses that are looking, but we're able to provide training specific to the needs of some of these corporations. We gear our programming towards skills development, and these are opportunities that we see going forward to continue to develop the folks that have been here, particularly those that have been here the longest. We also have identified, well, the most common and best known areas of vulnerability are in housing and in transportation. And in the county, particularly where we live, housing has been an issue mostly for cultural reasons. It has not been received well by the county in years past. The thought of transitional housing or recovery housing. That has begun to change, and we have made alliances with some very important people, not just in the county's political structure, but also in the private sector. And we are working toward having housing available in the county within the next 3 to 5 years. We also, as part of our effort to reach out into the community in a collaborative way, have begun to hold a public invited gratitude style meeting once a month on Friday evenings. So if folks are just curious about what we do and how we do it, we hold we'll begin holding next month, a once a month open to the public, and not just by invitation, gratitude meeting here so that people can get a sense of what it's really all about. Lastly, and I mentioned this a little bit at the top, we are very, very aware of the investment the community has made in the recovery community. The building that we now occupy is leased to us for $1 a month since the inception of the ARSC. That investment is a remarkable gift to us, and one that we are very, very proactive in reaching out to the community to show our appreciation for. And we do that by really finding other opportunities to serve not just our community with volunteer efforts, but any other of the nonprofits we show up to serve and support. We also have some specific events open to the general public and for the general public's benefit that you'll learn a little bit more about soon. Next slide, please. Aspirations. So for us, there are, in the community engagement process, always new opportunities evolving for us and becoming apparent through the work of our peer advisory board, particularly. We are very active in other nonprofits, events, and causes, particularly those that dovetail well into some of the stuff that we in the recovery community seek to work on. We have volunteers, a huge volunteer workforce here that is anxious to not just participate, but advocate for other nonprofits and other community organizations in the general county. And a terribly important, and I echo the same circumstances with regard to young people that Christian touched on earlier. We have an active drug awareness council that we participate in Forsyth County, who have a very, very strong tie-in to kids in schools. We're able to offer, particularly through engagement of the DAC in our county, and similar sort of advocacy and educational collaborations in school counselors, help to young people. It is becoming very, very apparent that young folks seek the kind of community that our ARSC offers to folks over 18, and it's something that we're developing through the Drug Awareness Council and participating in as a support system. One of the things that, one of the other aspirations that we're focused on intently is that we've raised a nice amount of money to start a child care program, thereby providing access to services for moms who otherwise cannot get to meetings or cannot get services. This is a terribly important missing in our county, and one that we're really excited about being able to address in the coming months. Lastly, on the aspirational level, we too are outgrowing our facility. In fewer than 18 months, we've come to a point where we're, jokingly counting flushes for the septic system in our facility, and there are some conversations going on with the county about how we can address this and find ourselves a newer, not necessarily newer, but much, much bigger facility. The great news of all of that, of course, is it means that something is working, and our reputation is such that folks are coming to us from all kinds of different areas in the county, and little by slowly, the PAB is doing a remarkable job identifying cracks in the system or people are slipping through, and we're able to catch them. So last slide for us on the results side, just to keep it sort of short and sweet. In our first year, we logged over 2,600 service hours. I have a photograph of our founder and one of our very first peers in this place, and there was nothing but a blackboard and an echo, and now we bump into each other all over the place. So it's really having a remarkable impact. We have 50 to 60 active volunteers at all times, which means we never lack for help with things that need to get done. We were very fortunate to raise some money in our first year and had a spectacular year in raising in-kind donations, which have been very, just invaluable to us. And then lastly, we had a Recovery Rocks event during Recovery Awareness Month last year. It was festival, an outdoor festival. It was extraordinarily well done. Neil Campbell came up and opened the show for us. We had music, we had food, we had games out on the lawn. It was a gorgeous summer day, and we had a fantastic impact. Recovery Rocks 2 is now in the works. It's going to move out of the park and right into the heart of downtown. Our new mayor is behind it and promoting it, and we're very, very excited about continued community engagement and integration, so that ultimately there will be no stigma, there will be no line between the recovery community and the community at large. There's just a whole lot of people living out an ideal model for humanity right here in Forsyth County. So that's a little bit about the Recovery Community Foundation of Forsyth and the connection. From our What's Happening list here, we have a whole lot of, our point of view has always been that the community is the ARSC. And so when folks like Warrior Moms or the Parents Recovery Network come to us looking for a place to hold their meetings, our answer is always absolutely. If we've got a room available, you have a home. And this has been sort of the defining mindset for RCFF all along. We too enjoy a robust yoga session here every Saturday morning. We are doing a lot of community education. In fact, this evening we have a Relationships in Recovery event that is part of our ongoing education series. We have a bingo, a very big bingo night with the faith community, Free Chapel here, coming up in April. We will be doing a blood drive for the benefit of the American Cancer Society, who we're partnering with to help out one of our peers had a little girl with a particularly unique brand of leukemia. So we're taking an opportunity to combine the Spring Fling and the American Cancer Society's involvement with a whole bunch of other community groups to raise awareness, raise money, and make a difference in the lives of people that suffer with cancer. And of course, Recovery Rocks will be coming to downtown coming this spring, and we will be sure to wake the town and tell the people with the details as that gets closer and closer. So I want to say thank you very, very much for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing. I want to particularly thank the Georgia Council for their support, their direction, their willingness to help out with anything, and that's about all I have.
Thank you so much, Bill. That was great. Both you and Christian, we appreciate both of you very much. If Larry, was there any other questions that Bill or Christian had? And if you do have any come in, I just wanted to just kind of reiterate what a few points that both of them made. It seems to be a common problem, which is a good problem, that within 1 to 2 years of a lot of these RCOs, these grassroots organizations have established that they outgrow their initial space, which is awesome, because ideally at that point they've already established some connections within the community where they're able to transition to the next space a little bit easier. Sometimes people can help in making that happen, and I think that also touches on, Bill was really hit where they've made some great strides in making some outside funding opportunities, because both the Connection and Fort Augusta have shown that they want opportunities to serve all individuals, regardless of their age. And unfortunately, sometimes we receive grants, there's contractual obligations that you have to stand up to, and so that's why it's so important to raise outside funding, so you can have unrestricted funding, where you can provide a variety of services that aren't limited to what your contract may say. And also really want to touch on the fact that, Bill mentioned the peer advisory board, and it's so important to just everything, going back again to the participatory process that we engage in. We hear what someone says and we take it into consideration and we make that opportunity available. So there was a lot of people that answered the question. I'm not sure if we had 100% participation, that who's been to an RCO. Well, 22% said they had not, and that equates out of the 67 people that were on the call, about 14 folks that haven't. So that's unfortunate, and hopefully we can alleviate that problem. Bill mentioned that, hey, we need to invite them to their local RCO. So if that was you that answered no, please reach out to us via email or in the chat box. Maybe you can leave your email contact information, and we'll try to provide you the info to where your closest RCO is. But we want to ask the folks that have gone to an RCO this question, and so we're going to allow people to answer this question at this time if they want to raise their hand. How did your experience at the RCO benefit your recovery? And then following that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to that, we had one question right before that. Is that okay if we go ahead and get that
Sure.
question?
Now would be a great time.
Okay, great. Kathy Beto, you have your hand raised. You are unmuted.
I am unmuted now.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
And so my questions, I had a few, but what I was thinking about was that why were there issues in treating or assisting people under the age of 18?
That would be for Christian.
Well,
I'm sorry.
so for Christian or for Bill or for anyone, so the contracts that are provided for the SOAR funding is limited to individuals over the age of 18. And so that's where their services for that funding that they're operating under needs to be directed to those individuals. So that's why I emphasize the importance of raising funding so that you can have unrestricted funds for some programs that you may want to provide. Or Christian also mentioned the fact that, you know, he can go out to the schools and speak there. And so you just have to, different contracts that you receive from SAMHSA or anywhere, maybe some foundation, you know, there's going to be certain limitations of what you can and you can't do in that. And so you have to abide by those, but you can also try to see, well, that doesn't mean that we can't do this, period, but we can't use this money for this.
I get it. I totally understand. Can I ask another question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so if you want to become a trainer of trainers, I mean, and you can't do these trainings even in the RCOs without being a trainer of trainers, is that correct?
Right, and there's some opportunities for maybe that to happen, but if you're, I'm not exactly sure which training in particular you may be talking about, but you know,
I'm just
as far
talking
as
about the basic, the SOAR, the recovery messaging, those kinds of things.
So there is a trainer of trainers that is provided. It's usually probably only like once or twice a year, maybe for SOAR, but for recovery messaging, now we would suggest that, you know, if you were to at least attend, you know, a number of recovery messaging trainings, and then also train or provide that messaging training with someone at least 3 times, and then we would feel comfortable with you going out and probably doing this on your own. But it's, again, it's best to have that unified voice, and so we want, you know, the same message going out across the board. But we could probably get more into that at another time as far as the training actually goes. But thank you for the good question.
Thank you.
All right, I have Daniel.
So we want to hear from some folks of how did your experience at the RCO benefit your recovery, and was there anything that would have made this experience better? So is there anyone that wants to answer a couple of those questions before we move into the next part of the presentation?
Great, I have 3 people. So right now I'm going to start off with Daniel. Daniel, you are unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
We'll probably only have time for those 3 individuals, just to let you know.
Okay.
So thank you for those 3.
All right. Daniel.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. I apologize. But so my experience personally was actually with the connection. I found the connection in 2018 when they first open their physical location. And I got connected with the founder, Catherine, and met Bill. And kind of Catherine just took me under her wing and became a mentor of mine. And if it were not for the connection, and if it were not for the mentorship of of Catherine, I would have never found my way to the CARES Academy, which opened my mind and opened my eyes and has allowed me to look at the world and with a different pair of glasses. So I guess you never really know the impact you might have on someone. So I'm grateful for the experience that I had at the connection. And in regards to making things better, I don't want to answer that question, but that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, Daniel, thank you. Next, we have Jamie Toludo. You are unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
So my experience at the RCO. So I've been to 3. One, of course, I work at, Divas. But I've been to Rise, and that was amazing. Always super fun time. Reminds me kind of to get myself centered and out of my head, and it's like a whole nother world. Like each RCO is like its own special little culture, and that's what I love. Also, Reboot Jackson, been over there, and I love all the people over there. Really enjoyed the talk about For Augusta. Christina Alexander is a really good friend of mine, and so she fills me in on a lot of stuff. And I just wanted to say, like, I've been working with the people at the Dental College of Augusta for like 4 years, and it's like students. And every time I go, I talk to them about recovery and the importance of like being a dentist and knowing about people in recovery. And I'm so excited now to be able to tell them about For Augusta. And see, anything that would have made the experience better. Yeah, if I got to stay for a longer period of time, that would have been better. Like to have a whole day and just hang out and have so much fun.
That's good.
Thank you.
So that's awesome.
Okay, and we have one more, and that will be Rhonda Chambers. You are unmuted. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rhonda. I have had the great fortune of going to the Divas Who Win Freedom Center in Athens, Georgia, and I go there quite regular. I am involved in a couple of different all recovery meetings that we have there, and also an NA meeting and an HA meeting that we have there. And it's been a very good experience for me. As far as other RCOs, I haven't actually been to any other RCOs. However, I have been involved in the Rise Theater coming to 2 different events that I was involved in, and it was amazing. I love the Rise RCO Theater. They are amazing people, and I love what they do. And I have walked away from both experiences feeling so full, I guess, just feeling so full of recovery. And I love those ladies. And as far as anything being better, I mean, I don't know about anything being better. I just know that it's imperative that our communities, that we get involved in our communities and show the community what resources that we have available. That's how this whole process continues to grow and get better. And
Thank you.
and I'm just glad that I'm a part of that.
Did you get
And-
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, everyone else that shared as well. And you know, we want, what better way to allow those 14 people to know how great the other RCOs are, and that, hey, this experience was beneficial to me, and that we can continue, just like Rhonda said, that, you know, if we share that experience and we share this information with our community, that others will want to see what is happening in the community. So we're already running. I'm kind of surprised. I thought we were going to have plenty of time, but we appreciate everyone's feedback. That's what the importance is of having this participatory process. So if you could mute yourself, please, and so we can have everyone's attention as we go through these last few slides. So going back to engaging these communities, how we do that across the state is by organizing focused conversations about recovery to foster local collaborative relationships for continued development of these communities that are going to be recovery focused. And how we found that to be successful is through our RCO development process, by planning for and hosting local symposiums. And we begin that process with the cultivation of recovery champions, like all of you, who are CARES, and those individuals that are not, because it may start in the form of an ally or a person in recovery who hasn't gone through CARES yet. But we have had a few start that some people went through CARES and they heard about RCOs, and they said, you know what, we need to do this in my community. And so just like Divas Who in Freedom Center, you just heard about it, and many others, that's how it began. And then we'll have a community listening session. So you heard from the RCOs previously, and they engaged in that. You know, it said it took Christian a while before they got started, but last year had a community listening session at the beginning of 2018. It was in March, I believe, and then just to, again, get the community's feedback on what is working, because there are things that are working, but there are some things that could be better. And so we asked that as well. And then what are those next steps to help us get there? Sometimes those next steps are for planning a symposium, and that's where we'll begin that process over about a 4 to 6 month period of time to, again, build those local, foster those local collaborative relationships and allow more individuals to hear about this process, and to plan for the best recovery symposium that we can have. And then afterwards, we'll have a recovery community visioning meeting to highlight all the great information that was gathered at the symposium itself. And so the idea that Georgia Council is just there to help support and provide advice and guidance along that journey. And so we found a few things to be successful on building this process. And so some of those have been that it's usually on a Saturday from about 10 to 2. You can get the most amount of people there. That we definitely highlight multiple pathways to recovery on a panel of recovery, and we'll have a speaker series as well. A very important piece is the cafe conversations that will go into the recovery community visioning meeting. So there we'll ask some specific questions that are created by the planning committee, and they will decide what they think that the community needs to answer and what they want to hear from the community as to where the RCO is going to put their focus in the future. Also very important is that you have good food and door prizes. and so here's just a few pictures of previous symposiums, so you can see one that we had down in Clayton County, and then one of the most recent ones down in Waycross, Georgia, and you can see a panel of multiple pathways. We've had diverse groups of folks, and then again, of course, you have a nice grand prize to keep people engaged until the very end. Not that they don't want to hear about recovery throughout the whole process, but you know, sometimes you got a nice incentive to stay the whole time. So the goals of our recovery symposium are threefold: is to develop local leadership in these recovery-oriented initiatives, create learning communities as allies and partners, build this system of care that is community-based, and connect local resources with each other to create sustainability. So that's the idea of the recovery symposium. That's the idea of the RCO itself.
So real quickly, and we won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but we were able to secure a federal SAMHSA grant back in 2017 called Building Communities of Recovery, or BCOR. And what it did was it gave some of the established recovery community organizations across Georgia the opportunity to build capacity and expand recovery support services. So the cohorts were, cohort number 1 is Living Proof Recovery in Rome, Georgia, and Warner Robins, which is, I hope that picture was of Teresa down there, and I hope in Warner Robins, Georgia. That cohort number 2 is Rise Recovery, Rise Theater down there in Atlanta, and Quita Forest in Newnan, Georgia. And then cohort number 3, which we are in now, it consists of Reboot Jackson and Reboot Jackson is in Jefferson, Georgia, in Jackson County, and Face to Face is in Wayne County, down in Jessup, Georgia. So right now, what's really amazing about BCOR is, you know, we talk about how we all support each other and we help each other and we mentor each other and lift each other up. What Living Proof and I hope have gotten from this experience, they had the opportunity to mentor Rise and Quita Forest so that they could go on to become mentors, and then they're leading the way with BCOR for the last 2 RCOs, Reboot Jackson and Face to Face. So they have really had an incredible experience of mentoring and menteeship. This is just the activities broken out just as a guide to show you. Cohort number 1 is stayed on for the life cycle of the grant, and then cohort number 2 is in blue, and cohort number 3 is in green. We are now in that latter part of cohort number 3 down there at the bottom in green. And then we have the Learning Collaborative meetings every month, which you guys are, if you're affiliated with an RCO, you understand what the Learning Collaboratives are. So this is just some pop out numbers that we wanted to share of peer interactions. We started BCOR with 200. The only number that we had for BCOR was 285 peer interactions in December. Okay, and then look how much it's grown. So we're just going to run through these, and this is, I hope, look at the growth there. You can see how this incredible opportunity for growth has happened over the life cycle of the grant. This is the Quita Forest, and then the last 2 are, oh, and there's Rise Theater. Now Rise goes up and down because of the type of work that they do, because they're on the road, and that February 19th, that was Mental Health Day at the Capitol, so they were able to, and they have many of those opportunities to get out into the community. They do a lot of community outreach with their organization, so. Face to Face, incredible growth. They're just doing great things. And then there's Reboot Jackson. So it's an incredible opportunity for them. Yep.
And as Emily mentioned, that the monthly Learning Collaborative meeting started out of the BCOR opportunity. And so we saw as the network was growing that we wanted to create, you know, these learning communities. And so we've opened this up to the entire network to be a part of these monthly Learning Collaborative meetings, and we do a quarterly in-person meeting. And so this is in December. You got to see all of these RCOs engaging with one another. Some of them were able to bring some peers as well, and so that peer voice, not only from ourselves, but from those that are at their locations, engaged in services, were able to provide their perspectives as well too. So just another opportunity that we have. ED training initiative is another thing that Georgia Council has been blessed to help support other RCOs, and the fact that so the Connection and For Augusta are both a part of this. And you know, we shared a little bit about the program that we have in Northeast Georgia, and so we're trying to help other organizations create those relationships and opportunities to what it may look like if they were to develop a program in their communities as well and establish those relationships with their healthcare systems. Recovery Month events, real quickly, a few events that there's Emily and I with Laree and Miss Doreen at North Atlanta Church of Christ for their Recovery Month event, and then Westside Wonders down at the bottom, and then Neil Campbell up there at Recovery Rocks. Bill mentioned that earlier, and so I think that they're having another event. I think Bill said in April, I believe. So you can get more information from them at their find out on their website. So that's it. Thank you for everyone for participating today. And if you have any questions, I think we're really kind of out of time, but we may have opportunity to answer just a few. What do you think, Lori?
It's okay with me, but what I do want to say is I didn't get a chance to say it earlier. Down in the bottom where it says handout, guys, the whole presentation is there. I'll stay logged in for like a minute longer for y'all to download that. But yeah, I
Thank
thank
you, Lori.
everybody who participated in the webinar today. I don't see any questions right now, so we can go ahead and end the webinar. Again, you will not get a certificate for this webinar. In a day or two, you will receive an email confirming that you were here. You will earn 1.5 CEUs for everyone who stayed for the duration of the webinar. And I'll stay in about 1 more minute if you all want to go ahead and download the handout. But thank you, Bill, Christian, Emily, and Brian. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. This was great, very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again. Yes, Bill and Christian and everyone that answered the questions. I really hope that you're able to reach out to us if you haven't been to an RCO, that we can connect you with one, or if you're interested in engaging in this process, to reach out to us again. I know we've had a few people that did answer questions that are interested, like Kimberly and Carrie, and Kathy is a part of the process now and down in Rockdale. And so we can let you know where the communities we're working with at this time. So thank you again, everyone.
Hey, Brian.
And hope you have a great day. Yes.
Real quick, for anybody who hasn't hung up yet, this is Christian in Augusta. If anybody has any friends or family or peers that are traveling this way for work or recreation, for whatever reason, if they're coming for treatment and they'll be relocating due to that, fact, you can go follow us on Facebook. All of our hours are there. All of our listings for our meetings are there. Just give us a call. We have a booking agent online where they can set up peer recovery services that way. We want to make sure no one gets missed. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I know that goes the same for Bill.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. Y'all have a good evening.
Too.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.